Business as Unusual is a thought-provoking podcast that explores the innovative strategies, disruptive ideas, and unconventional practices driving successful leaders and companies in the ever-evolving world of modern business. Subscribe, comment, and share for weekly inspiration with our host, Aicila.
Welcome to Business as Unusual. Today, I'm chatting with Sean Olson, founder of Olson Personal Injury Lawyers. Sean's journey from Emmy-winning journalist to top-rated trial lawyer is all about storytelling with impact, using his voice to fight for justice and help people rebuild after life-changing injuries. Through his firm's mission, Protecting the West, Sean and his team serve clients across Colorado, New Mexico, and Wyoming, securing not just verdicts, but real outcomes that change lives. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
I'm sure that, we talked about it a little bit in the back and forth before the show that, but there's some really prejudice against lawyers. And
there's plenty.
so I feel like it's kind of neat that you're using the law. It sounds like in service of a purpose. I mean, it feels like the idea I had of the law before I got a little older was that was sort of the point of it. But I don't know. How did that happen? You were from journalist to trial lawyer.
It happened back in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for a career change. I'd always promised myself when being a journalist stopped being fun, that I would find something else to do. And we just got to that point. It stopped being fun. So I took a couple of years to kind of walk the proverbial earth and figure out what I wanted to do next. And I decided on law school.
Yeah.
It gave me a chance to still tell stories, but tell stories with an impact. And so that's what I've been doing ever since.
Yeah. Well, and that makes a lot of sense to me because journalism, you have to pay attention to a lot of details. And I know there's no such thing as non-bias, but you have to try and be aware of your bias so that you can actually see what's happening effectively. Otherwise.
Right. And now I get to throw that right out the window.
You do? Okay.
As biased as I want.
So you have to be, I didn't know that. So you get to be biased as a lawyer?
Oh, I think so. I mean, you have to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we're biased in favor of our clients and everything that we do. So it's, and which is a lot different, obviously, than what I was before, which is, a third person observer of all things and never getting involved. And now I get to be involved and be biased and, fight for somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that being a nice change of pace.
It is.
Something you talked about is that a challenge that you're faced with is you have clients who are really intimidated by the legal system. And I mean, I definitely have that feeling of it does seem sort of like a black box with a bit of a gambling situation going on there.
It's nobody knows what the legal system is until they're thrust into it, usually involuntarily. And that makes people vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why you see so much predatory legal practice out there. It's because people don't know the system, they don't know what to look for, and so then they see a phone number, at 3:00 in the morning, when they're awake dealing with injuries, and they think, okay, I'll just call that guy, and then they get taken advantage again all over.
Yeah.
It's a system, and it's opaque, and it's complicated. It uses words that nobody else in the world uses but us, and I think a lot of it's probably intentional. It goes back centuries, to make us, better than everybody else. And so it's a problem for our clients because it's scary. And it forces people into bad situations and make bad decisions as a result.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. You said something that I hadn't really considered, that most people are thrust into it without intention. Like if you choose to be aware of a law officer or something like that, it's different. But for most of us, we actually try to avoid it at all costs, right? Like that's that's the goal.
Yeah, nobody wants to be in this world.
No one wants to be in that space. And so similar to like a medical diagnosis where you're suddenly, you get diagnosed with something like cancer and you suddenly are learning all sorts of things about oncology that you never really cared about before.
Right.
And it's very complicated, and there's lots of different perspectives or people who are asserting this is the way, but how do you even vet that? You don't know because you don't have any experience with that.
Right. And you don't know what questions to ask to even get you to a point where you know.
Yeah,
And so you have to rely on somebody else to help you to answer those questions. And that's a scary proposition.
it is. It's really scary to rely on people when you feel completely ignorant of what's going on. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that makes me think part of your job is almost therapy. Like it's that
All the time. All the time. Yes.
you can help
we are
people.
we are part-time counselors for
Hmm.
sure.
Interesting. Wow. One of the things that you do is when you take on a case, you finance everything for your clients. And
We do.
that says you put up that sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars so that they're able to afford justice, which I think is an interesting equalizer because a lot of justice really is about what you can afford in our current
No
system.
doubt. Right.
So how does that work?
It's just the nature of the business and the nature of the clientele we work with, and who they're up against, right? I mean, most of the time when we take on a case, the other side of the V is either an insurance company or a corporation of some kind,
Mm,
and those folks have all the assets in the world to bring to bear, and they bring them. They hire teams of lawyers, they spend thousands and thousands of dollars, and most of our clients are just people.
yeah,
They're your neighbor, they're the blue collar worker down the street. They don't have $100,000 to drop and gamble on some litigation, and hope that they have a recovery. And so the burden, that falls on us. And I was going to say the burden, but it's not a burden. It's what we do, it's what we've chosen to do. And that's how we equalize things. We balance out the scales and bring those kinds of things to bear. It forces us to act sometimes more like a bank than a law firm, because
mm,
we're fronting this money, we're fronting, the help and the costs of litigation and the salaries for everybody who's involved in it. And we front that with the goal that down the road, maybe 2-3 years down the road, we're going to get paid back.
right.
And normally it works out that way. Sometimes it doesn't.
That makes sense. I worked in the LGBTQ community for a long time, and I used to work around with the um, contacts around hate crimes. And one of the things that was really interesting to me as a layperson is, we see all these things on TV, law and order and stuff like that.
Uh,
And they have this way that you do it. And I was never forget when one of the police chiefs was explaining to me, he said that we don't ever try to figure out motive. The only time we ever do is in a hate crime because we try to figure out if it was possible. We look for the facts.
right.
And it just changed. It's something for me in understanding, oh, you don't really care about any of that. You just have to prove A, B, and C, which is both
Right.
easier, but also not always satisfying, right? Like that's why they tell the story the
He,
way they do it.
yeah. Right. Well, right. But people want a motive, right? We
Hmm.
want to know the why. And so even when we bring cases to trial, jurors, we don't have a burden of proving, why something happened, what was going on
Hmm.
in someone's mind, but jurors want to know it. And
Yeah.
and so we always try to provide it in some way, shape, or form. It's just one of those human needs that we have. When we hear a story, we want to know why something happened.
Yeah. And you can do that. You're allowed to bring that in, even though it's not technically part of the process. Right? The face.
We find a way.
You
We
find a way.
find a way to yeah, and we find a way to help the jurors out with that.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes we don't. They're not going to see the story the way we see it. So
That makes
it
sense.
becomes necessary. Yeah.
Well, I imagine probably makes your clients feel more seen to a certain extent if there's that sense of you looking beyond that, maybe.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it helps them too. I mean, it helps them to understand why something happened to them,
Hmm.
and so we do those root cause analyses, what is it? Was it Toyota? I think, we ask why 13 times or 7 times or whatever it was, and you get down to the actual why did this thing happen in the first place, you
Yeah.
know, and usually it's because someone was being careless with money or time. They didn't want to spend the money on proper training or spend the money, properly hiring somebody or something like that. So it takes some work to get there, but that's always our goal to figure that out.
Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds satisfying too, actually.
It is.
Um,
It's interesting. It makes the job fun.
yeah, it's a puzzle, like journalism, probably.
100%. Yeah.
What does success look like for you? Not just in one case, but in sort of what you're doing. Obviously, you're talking about it on a podcast and you want people to know what you're up to. But I also feel
Yeah.
like from what you shared prior to the our chat, there's also a commitment to maybe helping people understand more. I can't I feel like there's something else there. If I'm wrong, correct me, please. But
No, I think success for us, what's the expression? No one's going to remember what you told them, but they're going to remember how you made them feel.
yeah.
And so at the end of the day, success for us, I think, is having clients who walk away feeling as though they were seen, they were heard, that they found some level of justice along the way. That's really my goal. I mean, and sometimes, that justice comes in the form of a lot of money to compensate for what has happened. Sometimes it doesn't, but
Mhm.
you know, success for me is when clients, even those clients who walk away with very little, at least believe that some justice has been done, something right has been done. That's
Mhm.
that's success for me.
Yeah, that sounds like success. What advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
18-year-old self. I would say, well, I think the advice I would give my 18-year-old self is to listen to some advice that was given to me about 10 years before that. Maybe not 10 years, but sometime before that. My soccer coach, my youth soccer coach that I had, uh, he told us, and he told the whole team this. He said, there are three rules to success in life, and that is build others up, build others up, build others up.
Hmm.
Those were the rules. And I don't think I really listened to that or really understood what he meant until much later in life. I think my 18-year-old self was probably a selfish, typical teenager. And I didn't really understand the value of that, the
Hmm.
importance of that. And so I think, if I went back and had to tell my 18-year-old self something, I would say, listen to that dang advice and start living that advice.
Yeah, that is great advice. World is better. We all rise together, right?
I think so. I mean, it's really it's the we're a community, when it comes down to it. And if we're all focused on building each other up, good grief, there's nothing we can't do.
Yeah, I really believe that. I'm right there with you. How do you respond? You talked about it a little bit in, the Looney Tunes lawyers, perceptions that people have, but how do you respond to the prejudice that people have about legal lawyering stuff?
Yeah, we've got a reputation that is sometimes well earned.
Mm,
It's, there's there's money in what we do. And anytime there's money in something, people are going to focus on that and make that their why. And so that's why you see these lawyers, wielding hammers and saws and boxing gloves and things like that. And I think the way we try to make other people understand that that's not necessarily the way it has to be, right? There's a dignified way to go about this, because it's a dignified thing, right? Seeking justice.
yeah.
There are a few things more virtuous than that, and so I try to do that through education. I've written a book about the legal process, or the process of writing another one.
Hmm.
Most of our marketing that we do is to help people understand what we do through the stories of our clients, and
Mm.
how we've helped them and how we've built them back up. Uh, so I think it's talking to people. It's just having conversations about what we do and getting them to understand that, what they've seen on, Fox News or whatever it is that's, informed them of what it is that we do isn't necessarily the whole picture.
Yeah.
That's a hard job.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, it's definitely there's a lot of things that reinforce the prejudice in in story and not always accurate reporting if we'll be fair about that. And I think some of it's also that disconnect between the idea of what you can prove versus what you believe versus what you feel, like versus what
Right.
feels fair. Because like what can feel fair to you and me in a day to day, and what the law says are not the same.
Oftentimes they are in direct conflict with one another. Yeah, I
And that can
agree.
be really confusing to people, or even just, sometimes we have laws that are passed to address something that if you're not on the other side of it, you don't get it. Like I think about like tenants and landlords, they both think the other one has a lot more rights, but the reality
Right.
is that it's complicated.
Right. Right. And oftentimes those legal structures, they're created over decades or, centuries even,
Yeah.
and every change comes about because something happened
Yeah.
and that someone saw as unfair or unjust. And so they changed it. And
Yeah.
there's about a million ways that happens.
And no matter how well you try to construct it, there's always going to be another loophole. Like I think about
Right.
we used to, the state legislative bodies used to elect senators,
Mm-hmm.
and they changed that. They worked really hard to change that to get big money out of politics a little over 100 years ago. That didn't work. For those of you listening that are unsure, so that now I grew up always directly electing. I didn't know that was the way it used to be. And then I was reading the history of it. And I was like, oh, no matter what you do, there's going to be another workaround. Someone's going to find it. It always has to be a constant rebuilding to get there. You're not going to set it and forget it, unfortunately.
Right. Despite everybody wanting to set it and forget it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you're right. It just does not work that way.
It doesn't work that way. So it means you always have a new problem to solve. Yay for you. Good choice of a...
Depends on the day. Yeah.
Is there anything that you guys are doing in your business that you're excited about? Any like education programs? Are you writing a book that we could share with people?
Yeah, well, a few of those things.
Okay.
I think the thing that excites me most these days is creating a client experience that people remember. I think a lot of law firms don't do that to their clients' detriment. Because as lawyers, we think, we're here to practice law, right? I mean, we're here to just get results and, you call us, you hire us, and we'll give you a call when we need you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, a lot of that leaves clients in the dark. And a lot of that is what leaves a bad taste in clients' mouths about lawyers and the legal system in general, because they end the day without knowing anything more than what they knew at the beginning of the day.
Mm.
And so we set out to create an amazing client experience. And that includes a lot of education for our clients going forward. Because I think a lot of things are less scary when people are informed.
Yep.
And so whether that's, from the very get-go, we're flooding our clients with information. We, give them our cell phone number so they can call and ask questions. I wrote one book, gosh, it's been about 7 years ago, sort of a layperson's guide to, what happens in a personal injury lawsuit. And now I'm working on another one because I don't think my first one was good enough any longer.
Yeah.
And so now it's, the second one is geared toward clients as well. And, sort of a how-to for them, how to show up to their own case so that, they come in standing 10 feet tall, that they can't get beaten down, because that's what makes for a good client. Someone who is informed and someone who's not scared of things anymore and is just there to tell their story. So those are some of the kinds of things we do. It's sort of I'm constantly, it's one of those things, I'm constantly revamping our program, trying to make it better, trying to make it work better for our clients.
That's really awesome. I feel like over the years, I've talked to people in a lot of different industries. And one of the things that I see consistently, and it doesn't matter whether you're what professional service you are, doctor, lawyer, psychiatrist, whatever it is, auto mechanic, it's that feeling of partnership. Like you're bringing the expertise that you have, that you spent a long time developing, and they're bringing their situation and their expertise of their experience or their own, what's that, and together you can really create a powerful combination and a solution if you've got both people participating at that level.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we work to our own detriment, when we have clients who don't come in with that attitude,
Yeah.
who want to just shove everything our way and wave off of the whole process, call me when it's done. Those are the cases that, I don't know that we do have a lot of success with. We need clients who show up,
Yeah.
who are ready to fight with us.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like a really powerful combination. Well, thank you for talking to me today. For folks who are listening, how do they learn more, follow you, get in touch?
Easiest way is through our website,
Okay.
olsonlawfirm.com or protectingthewest.com. They'll both get you to the same place. And, we've got a lot of information on our website, and particularly our contact information, emails, phone numbers, and that kind of thing, depending on where you are.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Business as Unusual. Remember, in this ever-evolving world of modern business, it's not about fitting in. It's about standing out. See you next time. Stay curious, stay innovative, and always keep it unusual. I hope you enjoy the show. I love making it. If you did enjoy it, consider hopping over to the review portion of the platform you listen on and letting other people know about it. Or share the episode or the entire show with a friend or subscribe to the show. Definitely reach out, get on my newsletter, follow me on social media, and let me know what you like, what you don't like, and what you'd like to see in the future. Well, we love our guests. Appearance on the Business as Unusual podcast or any Bicurean consulting production is for information purposes only and is not to be considered an endorsement of their business practices, or character. Please properly vet anyone you find through this podcast and generally before you do any business with them. Thank you for listening.